thank you for joining, everyone. Today's InnoScot Health webinar. The title is Aiming for Better Lifelong Outcomes from Birth Through Enhanced Innovation. So it's great to have everyone here. I'm Paula Sweeten. I'm a Regulatory Project Manager here at InnoScot Health. And today I'm very pleased to say that we'll be joined with a recording from our guest speaker, Neil Patel, who is a consultant neonatologist and also Clinical Innovation Director at Glasgow's Royal Hospital for Children, who's going to talk about and also lend his insights on how innovation can help to provide the best possible care to babies, as well as his recommendations to anyone who might be a potential NHS innovator with an idea to improve patient care in the NHS. Just before we begin, I'd like to just note that today's session will be recorded and it will also be made available after today's session on YouTube for anyone who wishes to review any of the content at a later date. If you've got any questions during today's session, please just pop them into the chat and my colleague Frances Ramsey will pick them up and we can go through and do a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. So today we'll begin with just a bit of an overview of the importance of innovation development and commercialisation at InnoScot Health. Then we'll pass over to Neil, who'll give us his insights. And then following that, we'll specifically look at two innovations that InnoScot Health are in the process of commercialising, really aimed at giving you insights into these innovations and also how InnoScot Health actually commercialises products and the type of support that we might be able to offer you if you have an idea for an innovation in mind. So here at InnoScot Health, we've been on the go for about 23 years now, and we exist to work in partnership with the NHS, helping to develop and commercialise any NHS-born innovations. We've got a really unique role in terms of how we actually can work with NHS staff and our understanding of how the NHS operates. We're publicly funded by the Chief Scientist's Office. And when you come to us with an idea for a new innovation, there will be an assessment made by us where we'll really focus on the commercial viability of your product. We want to make sure that any products that are brought to market will be successful once they're on the market, and that they'll also give that kind of change to patient care that we're looking for. We also regularly carry out health economic assessments as well, where we're looking at the economic impact of different innovations to the NHS, with an end goal of trying to save the NHS money and freeing up more money for patient care in the NHS. If you come to us with an idea for a new innovation and it actually gets brought to market through our commercialisation processes, there will be a financial return, usually to the health board that you work within, and also to the innovator themselves. So we're here to take you through that whole commercialisation process and to give you guidance and support so that that financial return is managed and that you're also rewarded for your hard work. So at InnoScot Health, it's very important to us that we always understand how the ever-changing needs of the NHS evolve. Once per year, we carry out a survey where we assess our role working in partnership with the NHS. An interesting figure that we pulled out of that survey is that 90% of healthcare staff believe that innovation is important to improve NHS Scotland services. Often people can get a bit bogged down when they think about innovation and think that it's the latest big thing from a large multinational company, but actually grassroots innovations that come from healthcare staff in the NHS who actually have their feet on the ground are often just as, if not more important than those big impressive technological advances that you hear about in the news. So we're delighted to, see on this slide here, down at the bottom in blue, that 76% of staff have ideas and in orange that 64% of staff would consider themselves as healthcare innovators. But what these figures also tell us is that 36% of people don't see themselves as healthcare innovators. And that's something that is probably not true. Really, everyone who works in the NHS has the potential to be a healthcare innovator. And we would like to hear from you if you have any ideas, because you're the staff that see unmet clinical needs of patients day in and day out. And one of the things that I'd really like to emphasise today is that we are here to listen to your ideas, to help evaluate them, and to give you support and also guidance. So to summarise just a bit about what we actually do when innovation ideas come to us, we really will seek to look at the development potential of those ideas and to think about what a commercialisation route would be. We'll assess your ideas and offer you advice from quite a broad and expert team that we've got here at InnoScot Health. One of the things that we do most often is protect intellectual property that sits behind innovations. So that's really the element of an innovation that commercial partners would be interested in. And it will generate the revenue for the innovator and the NHS because it's like the tangible asset that a commercial partner would be interested in. If you have an idea for an innovation that's a medical device, there's quite a lot of regulatory considerations that have to be made around that. And really, we've got an excellent regulatory team in-house that's led by Elaine Gemmell, and we would look to try and consider the regulatory roadmap for you with your innovation right from the get-go to ensure that it's got the greatest chances of commercialisation. Every project that we have at InnoScot Health has a dedicated project manager as well. So that person would oversee the project from start to finish, and they'll be with you every step of the way. And finally, we do have this extensive innovation expertise where different people at InnoScot Health have come from a really broad range of backgrounds, and we've got an excellent network across the whole regulatory landscape. So I'm just about to pass over to Neil for his pre-recorded section on the importance of neonatal innovation. Shortly after that, we'll then take a closer look at two InnoScot Health-led innovations that are just about at the point of commercialisation. And they're really valued prime examples of where simple but NHS-born innovations really great examples of how these NHS innovations are having quite a significant impact already. Right now, we've got a pregnancy and perinatal innovation call on. So we're welcoming ideas, particularly in the areas of pregnancy and perinatal innovation. But if you do have an idea for anything that would benefit patient care, please get in touch with us. I'll share all of our contact details at the end of the webinar. But for the time being, I will pass over to this pre-recorded section from Neil Patel.
Hi, my name is Neil Patel. I'm a neonatologist here at the Children's Hospital in Glasgow, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to have the opportunity to say a few words on this webinar with you all. Neonatal innovation is really central to our ability to deliver best possible care for babies and for their families. We know that globally, around 10% of babies will need some additional support after birth and are likely to need admission to a neonatal unit. Some of those may only be for a few hours, some may be for many weeks. And it's the development of technologies to support the most effective care that has really been central to driving advances and improvements in outcomes. This is data showing neonatal survival in North America and in the UK over the past 100 or so years. And what you see is that there's been a steady and important and impressive reduction in neonatal mortality. But associated or really driving that has been technological innovation in a number of key areas. That includes the development of effective thermal care for babies, improvements in their nutrition, supporting their ability to receive maternal breast milk with all the advantages that brings, but also when they can't be fed, the ability to deliver intravenous nutrition. Over the past 6 or 7 decades, perhaps the biggest advances, particularly for preterm babies, have come from improvements in respiratory care, including the use of surfactant, development of increasingly advanced modes of ventilation and respiratory support. And those are really part of a very advanced neonatal intensive care system that includes multi-parameter monitoring, pathophysiological assessment using scanning, laboratory testing, and point of care investigations. And the question is, how do we continue to build on this fantastic legacy of innovation in neonatal care and harness the latest innovations, the latest technologies in this new industrial age, the fourth industrial revolution, that include connected devices, AI, predictive software, not just to improve survival now, but perhaps even more importantly, to improve lifelong outcomes in this group of fragile patients, particularly as we push the boundaries of the most preterm babies or the babies with the most complex congenital anomalies. I mentioned that this is really a highly technological specialty now, and this photograph perhaps portrays the epitome or the end result of that. This is a baby in our neonatal unit receiving ECMO, that's heart and lung bypass. You can see the multiple infusions, the multiple monitoring systems, the really highly skilled individuals, my colleagues Margaret and Lynn, looking after this baby. And then in the foreground, the actual heart-lung bypass machine itself. But you can't actually see the baby. And I would ask you to think about this situation from the perspective of the parents, particularly the first time they ever perhaps meet their baby in the neonatal unit. It's incredibly intimidating. And what this helps us to understand is that the life-giving technologies that we have developed in neonatal care also have the danger of becoming a barrier between that baby and their family. And in the past decade or so, we've really come to understand the importance of family involvement in neonatal care, as in any child's care, but particularly for babies who are critically unwell. We call this partnership with families and their involvement in their baby's care, family integrated care. And it requires a culture change in our unit to reevaluate where we place parents in that, not as visitors, but as partners at the center of their baby's care. And this prompts us to think about how we develop technology and innovation in the future. First of all, not to create barriers, but actively to break down barriers and to actively support families to be involved in this family integrated care model. And as you listen to the webinar today, I'd encourage you to think about that, to think about how the technologies that you're hearing about have been inspired by this need to connect babies to their families. This is not just a nice to have. We know from high quality evidence now from around the world that by supporting parents to be involved in babies' care, to give feeds, to hold their babies, as you see in this photograph, to perform skin-to-skin care, supports connection between the child and their parents and bonding, encourages mothers to express breast milk and provide breast milk feeds for the child with all the benefits that that provides, encourages physiological stability and growth in the child, and from a practical point of view, brings benefits for our services by enabling babies to go home quicker, with better weight gain, and with ongoing benefits of breast milk feeding. So the question then is, how can we develop processes that will help us to develop new technologies that really support this concept in the future? And for me, the important thing and the fantastic and messy element of innovation is about really sitting down with the people who are going to be affected and hearing from them about how we could do things better. really unpacking the problem that we're trying to solve. And this is a photograph of a group who come together in our unit. We call ourselves the Hug Group Helping Us Grow. And it's this wonderful collaboration of patient families, past and present, staff of all grades and disciplines and specialties within the neonatal unit, within the hospital. And we come together to listen to families, asking them, how can we support them to be more involved? How can we remove the barriers to their care for their child? And I have to tell you that this group has been the catalyst for so many different innovations in our own neonatal unit. Because when a parent poses a problem to you, it helps you to truly understand the impact, but it also really motivates you to go and solve it. So if any of you are interested in solving problems for neonates and developing innovations, I think the best learning I can share with you is to really try and understand the problem from the people who are most affected by it. And by doing that, we'll not only co-develop solutions that really truly address those problems, but we'll develop solutions that will be commercially successful because there'll be an instant market need for them. So thanks again for the opportunity to share a few of my thoughts with you. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the terrific innovations that are being shared with us today. Thank you.
So thank you very much to Neil for providing those insights to us on the importance of neonatal innovation, as well as his thoughts on how to best develop new innovations. Neil's experience and opinion are very much valued by our team here at InnoScot Health, and Neil has played a really important role in providing feedback and also guidance during the prototype refinement phase of one of our two innovations that we're going to cover today. So the first one is the hug holster, which we'll just talk about now. So this innovation was put to us by a trainee doctor in Glasgow called Jill Campbell. Most innovations come from healthcare staff who see a problem, and what Jill noticed was that skin-to-skin care of premature babies was becoming increasingly a popular way of improving neonatal outcomes in hospitals. However, putting babies onto the chests of parents for skin-to-skin could be problematic because sometimes there are many wires and tubes that are required to support these babies. Typically, these wires and tubes are just taped onto the skin of the parent or the caregiver, or a blanket is sometimes placed around the parent or caregiver's shoulders, and the tubes and wires are secured to the blanket. Jill saw an unmet need here, really, which was that there was no simple, safe, effective, and comfortable standardised way of securing tubes. So what she decided to do was to create this innovation that's called the hug holster. So the idea behind this innovation was assessed some years ago when we were Scottish Health Innovations, or SHIL. And what we did was work with Jill Campbell, and we have actually patented this aid. So the patent's granted, and as I touched on earlier on, patents and any form of intellectual property, they're tangible assets that make a really valuable proposition when you go out to find a commercial partner who will manufacture and sell products onto the market. So the manufacturer that we have been working with on this particular project is a company called Parade. They're a division of EVAC Chair, and they're a really valuable partner to us in many ways. But one of the most important things that they have done has been to actually work with us on several iterations of the hug holster prototype. Multiple models have been made, and they've been refined each time, which has been a really interesting and engaging process. And what's great is that having worked through all these different iterations, the product that we're actually about to bring to market, hopefully this summer, is one that's been really carefully refined. It's had lots of patient and clinical involvement, and it's really the best one yet. So it's a fantastic product that we're looking forward to launching. While the relationship with Parade, who are our commercial partner, is really valuable to prototype development, our relationship that we have at InnoScot Health with different neonatologists across Scotland has also been really important. We've had insight from Neil, as discussed earlier, but feedback from other clinical staff at the NICU in Glasgow, especially consultants Helen McDevitt and Martina Rhodey, have played a really vital role in helping us to shape the product, get the feedback that is from the people who will actually use this, parents and caregivers, and to make sure that the product we've got is the most market ready it can be. With this particular innovation, I thought it was quite an important note to make here that the original innovator actually changed discipline to a different area of medicine. And although her career has led her elsewhere, we're still in touch with her. But InnoScot Health has largely managed this innovation independently. And I think that's an important point. If you are someone who is considering bringing an innovation to us, you might think I'm too busy, I don't have the time to actually devote and donate a lot of time to the idea and the device's development or the product's development. But we're here and we're used to working with innovators who can engage in lots of different capacities. So please don't let that put you off if you have a good idea. This project is just a great example of how the team at InnoScot Health can manage different levels of engagement and work with NHS innovators to still bring products to market if the engagement is a bit tricky and career paths take you elsewhere. So I'd like to talk just a bit about our relationship with Parade. That's a really important one. We would never have got to the point where we are just now without them. We've been working with Parade on multiple projects for over 15 years, lots of different types of projects, different varieties of projects, but we've maintained this great relationship with them. And the strength of that relationship is really critical to having successful product commercialisation. As I mentioned earlier, we hope that the commercialisation will be completed this summer. What we're doing right now is working through what's called a licensing agreement, and that's really the contract between the manufacturer and InnoScot Health on behalf of the Health Board and the innovator, where we just go through the legalities of commercialisation. Once that's complete, Parade will have the licence to go off and manufacture and sell the hug holster, and then we can get it out into clinics, hopefully across the UK and beyond. But our work doesn't stop there. Once the licensing agreement is signed and we've represented everyone's interests and made sure that the agreement suits all the parties involved, InnoScot Health will provide ongoing support. We've got a really dedicated communications team here who will assist with ongoing marketing support. And the project manager who works on the particular project will continue to liaise. So for this project, I'll continue to liaise with Parade and make sure that we can get the product into the NHS and make it available to everyone who needs it. So it's a great project and we are very grateful to Parade for all of their time and support, as well as to the original innovator, Jill Campbell. So the next innovation that I want to talk about is it's related in a sense. It's still a neonatal innovation that's there to support babies and their families, but it's quite different. And this innovation is called the Cozy Cuddle Scrubs by Stacey. And it's a really nice project as well. So this is an innovation that came to us from NHS Lothian midwives Stacey Boyle and Marianne Hay. Much like Jill Campbell in the previous example, Stacey and Marianne just identified an unmet need, and this was the inspiration behind their innovation, which is something that I'm sure is really the inspiration for most innovations that can come out of the NHS. So what they had noticed was that babies were getting cold after elective C-section deliveries. As a result of their drop in temperature, their blood sugar could also drop, and clinical outcomes would be affected by that, sometimes quite seriously, leading to babies requiring special care. So Marianne and Stacey just sought a way to keep these babies warm, which was really to just design an entirely new type of scrub where there's a fleece covering that babies can be held inside so that they can receive immediate skin to skin from birthing partners, which is something that's a challenge for birthing people to do if they're having an elective C-section, because they have a lot of wires and there's a lot of equipment on the chest of the person giving birth. So typically what would happen before is the baby would be taken away to be weighed, have the cord cut, that kind of thing. And dads would be able to consider giving skin to skin, but they would have to use just a thin blanket. Some dads don't want to take their tops off, as any birthing partners may feel the same. So that's where the idea for these scrubs came from. There have been a lot of benefits from these scrubs. So Marianne and Stacey have now got a batch that they use in-house. They developed themselves. So they're used at St John's Hospital in Livingston. And we're now working with a manufacturer, a new commercial partner called Glasgow, which is a division of Keela, shown the logo at the top right there. And what has happened and what they've noticed in St John's, which is just amazing, is that there are multiple benefits coming from the use of these scrubs. Not only has there been a marked reduction in the number of babies being admitted to special care, but there have also been quite profound impacts on the experience that birthing people and birthing partners have during C-sections. So up until these scrubs became available, the baby would be taken away from the birthing person, probably for about half an hour. But now, because those scrubs are available, the birthing partner can actually sit beside the person who's given birth, have the baby receiving skin to skin in a nice warm set of scrubs. So that's having quite a lot of nice impact on the birthing person and the birthing partner as well. So the intellectual property here was protected with support from NHS Lothian and also InnoScot Health. And rather than a patent, what we've got here is a registered design for these scrubs. But even though it's not a patent, it's still a tangible asset that's of value to our commercial partner. And that intellectual property in the form of the registered design has underpinned the commercial agreements that we're working through with Keela and their division Glasgow at the moment. Our communications team and I have been working with NHS Lothian and also the manufacturer to implement a communication strategy. And that's led to widespread media coverage for this product. This one is slightly further along the line than what the hug holster we just discussed is. That's really because by the time the innovators had come to us, they were actually using some scrubs they'd made themselves in the hospital. Whereas for the hug holster, it's yet to be launched onto the market and it's not in use at present. But this kind of widespread media coverage that we've had around the Cosy Cuddle scrubs has been really, really excellent for the innovation. The scrubs featured in STV News and the two innovators, partly on the back of that, have been shortlisted for an innovation, a very prestigious innovation award with the Royal College of Nursing. So they'll find out the results of that in June next year. We wish them the best of luck with that. So the media coverage is really important and it's led to lots of different health boards in Scotland and also NHS trusts in England showing interest in these scrubs, which is great. And that underpins part of the commercial strategy as well, knowing that there's a market out there and that there's a route to getting into the NHS. One of the nicest things to come from all of the media was that we had a GP, Catherine McKenzie, get in touch with us on the back of the STV news piece and she's actually taken a batch of the scrubs out to Uganda, where she's involved in a charity initiative, where even though it's a much warmer country, the hospitals in Uganda still experience some of the same issues that we have here, where babies' temperatures drop, and that can have quite significant effects on clinical outcomes for those babies. So the scrubs are currently in Uganda being tested there, and we look forward to hearing how Catherine gets on with them. So just as our relationship with Parade for the hug holster has been really important, we've also got a very valuable relationship with Keela and their subdivision Glasgow, who supply to the NHS. Keela previously worked with us on a very different innovation, which was a resuscitation hood for use during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the relationship with Keela and Glasgow is very valued, not only by the Health Board, but also InnoScot Health. And as we reach these final stages of commercialisation, they've been a great support to us in terms of planning how we'll get the product out to market and get it available to all of the hospitals that have shown interest in it. So we're very grateful to Keela and Glasgow for all of their time and support. I wanted to just show now a short snippet of that STV news piece on the Cosy Cuddle scrubs, because it summarises quite nicely the impact of this innovation on a family who used them during the birth of their daughter, Isla.
This kind of contact wasn't possible straight away for Michael when his wife Sarah gave birth to their previous 2 children via C-section. But when his daughter was delivered in theatre 2 weeks ago, Michael was given the option to wear these specially designed scrubs with a kangaroo-style pouch, meaning little Isla was able to feel the warmth of skin-to-skin contact as soon as she was born 2 weeks ago.
It was good to feel like I had a role to play this time instead of just sitting there and then being sent to the waiting room, because it feels like a long 30 minutes when you're waiting on her getting put back together.
It meant that Michael and the baby, so Isla, stayed with us till the surgery was complete, which is the first time for me having them both with me.
Initial skin-to-skin contact with the mum directly after giving birth can be challenging in a theatre setting. Midwives say a lack of this kind of warmth can lead to a higher need for extra care. This kind.
Great. I think that's just a nice summary of the impact of that innovation, and it's really nice to see that an innovation that really seems quite simple can have these really profound effects on the entire experience of the family involved. So just to wrap up just now before we move on to our Q&A section, I'd just like to point you towards this option that we've got, where you can book a consultation with us if you have an idea for an innovation, whether it's related to neonatology, pregnancy, perinatal, or anything else. Please do get in touch with us. NHS staff can use the consultation booking calendar that's on our website. That allows you just to select a date and a time for a 30-minute meeting with one of our team of innovation managers. So we've got 3 innovation managers covering different areas across Scotland. So please do get in touch. They would love to hear from you, and we're always keen to listen to new innovations and see what we can do to help. So this webinar is part of a series that we will carry on. Usually they're held the last Wednesday of every month. So this is the link to our upcoming events and webinars section of our website. So please go there and you can keep up to date with what our next webinars will be. Equally, we're always open to suggestions for topics that anyone in the audience would like to have. So if you have an idea or there's a particular area that you would like to be covered during a webinar, please get in touch with us using this email address, info@innoscot.com, and we'll certainly consider that. We want to engage as best we can with you, so it's great to have your ideas. So thank you very much for attending. There's a list of all of our different contact options there, and also a QR code for anyone who would like to sign up to our newsletter and keep in touch with us. And for now, what we'll do is I'll just pass over to my colleague Frances Ramsey, one of our innovation managers, to see if we've got any questions that came through in the Q&A or before today's webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. It was really interesting to talk, and the audience have been quite quiet. So I just thought we would maybe discuss our reasonings behind one of the inventions, i.e. the hug holster, having a patent, and then why we didn't go for a patent with the Cozy Cuddle scrubs, and just to kind of discuss that really in further detail.
Yeah, so every innovation is different when it comes to us, and we will carry out an intellectual property assessment as part of our standard evaluation we do of all innovations that come through to us. There are lots of different forms of intellectual property. Patenting is the one I think that comes to mind for most people. It is quite costly, and when you're thinking about patenting, you really need something to have an inventive step. There's got to be something that's really unique to that product. So with the hug holster, there's nothing else on the market that does what that does. So it had that inventive step that made it suitable for patenting. But when you consider innovations like the Cozy Cuddle Scrubs by Stacey, it's a garment. It doesn't look that different to the scrubs that are on the market at the moment. And there's no real inventive step as such associated with that. Really what you're protecting there is the unique design of them. There's nothing else that has that design where it's a fleece panel that opens up and allows a baby to be put inside. So that's why in that case that project had its intellectual property protected through design right rather than patent.
Yep, and that kind of brings us on to as well how we look to choose manufacturing partners. I know that we've worked with several in the past, but if someone's to come to us with an idea, it's just really how we do that.
Yeah, again, so that depends very much on the project and the type of device or product that we're looking at. So it really depends. Obviously, we've been, as I mentioned earlier, on the go for 23 years. So we do have quite good relationships with a range of different manufacturers. Sometimes with a project, it will be easier to go to someone who you've already worked with. Certainly, you might be looking at quotes for design work, or it might be a case of you've got a product and a prototype that you're ready to take straight to manufacture. It just depends very much on the project. So we would look at the network that we've got that's established, that we already work with, manufacturers who we know are reputable, and we would consider them. But certainly there are also instances where projects will come to us in an area we haven't worked in before. And that's where your project manager at InnoScot Health would be responsible really for going out to different companies, different organisations, getting in touch with them and trying to match up your idea or innovation with the correct company, someone that's not only capable of doing it, but aligned in terms of their goals and aspirations and things as well. So it's very much a kind of project-to-project basis, but the project manager at InnoScot would be the person who would work with you and try and find the best partner.
I'm smiling because a question's just came in about timelines for projects, which can be very, very long, or sometimes, short, as in with the Cozy Cuddle because of its previous clinical research that's associated with that, I guess. So
yeah,
I don't know if you want to add on timelines, but I'm just laughing because it can take a long time, but we're with you every step of the way.
Yeah, some projects will be very, very quick in terms of a lot of it depends on how much development has to be done and then how quickly you can find the commercial partner. So with the Cozy Cuddle Scrubs project, the majority of the development had been done by Stacey and Marianne and their colleagues in the sewing room at St John's Hospital. So it was basically like a project that was ready to go. So we were able to then get in touch with suitable manufacturers. One of the first ones we went to was Keela, because we've worked with them previously, and they're very reputable and we have a good relationship with them. And it just so happened that they were very interested in this product, and we've had a really nice working relationship where any minor issues or things that have to be sorted have been solved really, really quickly. So that project's been commercialised rapidly, whereas other ones, particularly if it's a project that's a medical device and we have to consider all the regulatory requirements, these projects have to be, you need to do the design and development under an ISO 13485 framework, which we are ISO 13485 accredited. We can do that, but there's a lot of documentation and quite a kind of prescribed and detailed process to work through with innovations that are classified as medical devices. So it's a hard question to answer. It really does depend on the project, the type of innovation. But again, if you have an idea, I think it's just best to get in touch with InnoScot Health. We can give you a ballpark. We can let you know what would be involved in commercialising your innovation you've thought of, and we'll give you as much guidance as we can on that.
There's other questions just came in on engagement and how much time that would take, and also if the innovators and the manufacturing partner is in alignment, really. And I guess that's a similar answer, like just get in touch with us and we'll help along the way and try and marry those two up, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important as well to consider how certain kind of topics will be hot topics in the news and in the press. And if you have an innovation that fits with something that's a current government priority or something that's in the media a lot, you tend to find manufacturers and commercial partners will want to work on something that's like, hot in the press. So if you've got something that is suited to current affairs and what's being discussed by government, that can be a big one. So I know, for example, there's been quite a lot of thoughts and discussion in Parliament right now about this Best Start new model to neonatal care. So all these neonatal innovations are happening at a time where it's being discussed a lot by government. So I think to consider what's happening in government and that kind of thing as well. If you're working in an area that is a hot topic, it will be much easier to get commercial interest in your product.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it from a question and answer point of view, but really, really interesting and good to see that we've got some things coming to fruition soon to share with everyone.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, again. Please do get in touch with us if you have any ideas for any innovations. And as discussed earlier on, this webinar will be recorded, so it will be made available on YouTube. Thank you very much for attending. Bye.